Raising consciousness and awakening mankind. This is End of Days Radio. And here we are for another episode of the End of Days. This is your host, Daniel. Daniel, broadcasting from the beautiful and shimmering Emerald City, Seattle, Washington, located here in the heart of the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Such a beautiful area with all these trees and this rain and this sun. Oh my, it's all over the place. How are you guys doing today? We just did a show the day before yesterday, but it doesn't matter because this is a very special time for End of Days Radio. It's a special time for me. It's a special time for all of you. Did you enjoy that last episode? I hope that you did. Tonight is going to be just as crazy. We've got a very special guest. His name is E.A. Koetting. You might know him from the Becoming a Living God series. He's a practitioner of magic and the occult, and probably one of the best speakers on these types of topics that I've ever heard. This will be his second time joining us, and I'm very excited about it. I'm going to go ahead and give him a call. There's some stuff to talk about, but we can worry about that after the break. Let's go ahead and get EA on the line. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
EA, is that you?
Yes, it is. Am I coming through all right?
You sound absolutely fantastic.
Why, thank you. Perfect. No, I was listening to your intro there, just on the End of Days site, and oh man, you opened up by saying that this is an interesting time, that there are interesting things in store, and man, you're not kidding. This is an awesome time. There is so much going on in the world. I bet your program has just been crazy busy keeping up with all of it.
Oh yeah, there's always all kinds of strange things to talk about. My guest the day before yesterday, he was a very, very hardcore Christian and biblical type, and I got quite a few complaints about that. I wish people would be a little bit more open-minded, but maybe they'll be happy that you're on the show now.
Hopefully, and I'll tell you what, everybody, there's as many views and perspectives on reality as there are people, and so it is always interesting to kind of get the whole spectrum, and it does, it's Socratean dialectics that in order to really come to any kind of understanding, we kind of have to look at all opposing views and then kind of take our own stance based on not just one perspective but all perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a good idea to keep an open mind, because even though you might not agree with the person's particular creed or religion, they might have stuff in there that is perfectly okay and could apply to you, and there's no reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I like to say.
No, for sure. My friend Robert Bruce, he's got a website, Astral Dynamics, and he teaches astral projection and psychic self-defense and that sort of thing. The phrase that he always uses is open-minded skepticism. And so, be open-minded, but still be skeptical, and really weigh the evidence of everything. But at the same time, in order to really weigh the evidence, you have to be willing to hear the evidence before you can even come to any kind of decision. And when I say hear it, not just listen to it, but to really take it in and consider whether or not it's true. But you do have to be careful and use logic and reason to really weigh all these things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to get into you and your life story a little bit. I wanted to be a little bit more in depth last time. We did an okay job of covering it last time, but I wanted to just go ahead and start at the beginning, just so that people, maybe they didn't listen to that last show, I want them to kind of get to know who you are. Would it be okay if we went as far back as childhood and talked about how you actually got into this world of magic and the occult? I'd like to do that if that's okay.
Yeah, no, by all means. So I always, ever since I have memory of my life, I've always had a push towards the spiritual and the supernatural. I kind of always understood that there's another world or another reality intersecting with this one, and I grew up in a Mormon household. Well, from the age of 4 on, I grew up in a Mormon household. Prior to that, I was given up for adoption shortly after I was born. I had some pretty heinous families that I was with that ended up going to prison, and it was a kind of a disaster. So the first 4 years of my life were absolutely disastrous. But after 4, I was adopted by a Mormon family and was raised in that religion. And we would read the scriptures every night, and as we'd read about these prophets and the miracles that they would perform, I always kind of wanted to look behind it and say, okay, well, how did they do that? What was their method? I remember even when my mom told me about Santa Claus and how Santa Claus could go up the chimney, I go, well, how? She goes, well, he puts his finger on his nose. And I go, okay, wait, what finger, what nostril, what's the actual method? What's the process? Because if I can, I would like to fly up a chimney. So, what's the method that I can duplicate? And that's kind of always been my push. And so, as a small kid, I was, maybe 5 or 6 years old. I laid out my Lego blocks in front of me and sat and tried to levitate them, and I knew that if I could just bring my mind to a certain calmness, that I would be able to lift them up off the ground. I never got to that point at that age, and but I did know that there was immense capability that was somewhere inside of me that I just had to tap into, and so I started experimenting with it in every way that I could. And I even remember, since I had a Christian background at that point as a small child, I knew that if you prayed in a certain way, that your prayers were more likely to be answered, that if you could detach yourself from the outcome while still being certain of its occurrence, then you could actually create changes in this world. And you can use, at this point in my life, I advocate what most people will call occultism or witchcraft, using ceremonial magic and rituals in order to make things happen. But you can really use any spiritual paradigm in order to affect change in this world. All religions are basically teaching the same thing when you break it down to its core components, and a lot of that is indeed practical ways that we can really harness this power for our own good. And so, just going forward in life, as I started getting into my teen years, I switched over into looking into witchcraft pretty heavily. Actually, while I was still a Mormon, I was and I wasn't just a Mormon kid. I was like the Mormon kid. I was in the Mormon church, for each youth group, they'll assign or elect one of the young men or women to kind of be the leader of their class, and I was constantly finding myself in these leadership positions, constantly finding myself, Boy Scouts senior patrol leader, and the bishop's messenger, and I would give youth. I was a youth speaker almost every month. They have a youth speaker, and they would call me repeatedly for that. And so I think that was already being recognized. That maybe I saw. I don't know if deeper would be the right word. Maybe it is. Maybe I just that the hierarchy of the church could kind of see that I saw deeper into what was going on spiritually. And at the same time, though, I was sneaking away because I was living in Las Vegas in high school, and I would sneak away into the high school library. And Las Vegas libraries are completely different than Utah libraries, as I'm living in Utah now. I would go there and find Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology and start studying that and studying demonic pacts, and just getting my hands on anything that I could that was really magically related. And with that I studied it for several years. I eventually did start using a Ouija board. That was my first experiment with anything occult related, and it scared the hell out of me, but it also intrigued me. And I started noticing that I could, while the planchette is moving on the board and we're speaking to these spirits, I could also feel the spirit in the room. I could start to pinpoint its location, and then that kind of clicked with me that it wasn't just trembles in the hands that are making this planchet move, but that there actually is a spiritual, not just a force, but an actual entity that would be with me. And then it kind of just took off from there of different experiments. And that's one of the big things that has driven me into massive occult studies, is that it is much more methodical and practical than I think any other path out there, because it's not a religion. There is some dogma that's embedded into the occult, but not much, and it's really easy to see through. And so you can instead just get into the primary aspects of what actually makes this work, what makes the ritual come to life and creates that shock wave that carries out into the external world. And so yeah, I just kind of flew with it from there. Joined up as soon as I was able to, which most temples and churches and lodges out there don't let you join until you're 18. I applied to a whole bunch of them before that and got turned down. But as soon as I was 18, I just started hitting membership in all of these groups to try to get their secrets, try to figure out what they had to teach me. And started formulating kind of my own path. Once again, just by breaking down the ritual. You take any ritual, any ceremony, and when you break it down to its core components, you do end up with a really specific system that if you do these steps in this order with this particular approach, you end up with a result, and that result is that something will happen in yourself and in the outside world that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And so I just started breaking it down, finding the elementary components of what makes magic work, and then really just started hammering it there. So in my 20s, I authored eight books on the subject, and then here the last 5 years, I've been really just uploading all of my knowledge to the internet through my site Become a Living God, and where I'm doing video courses and releasing books and magical tools that you can use, and basically just everything that I know, everything that I've kind of gathered is once again just being uploaded onto this website that hopefully will just be able to endure and teach other people for as long as the internet is connected.
Can you hear me better now?
Perfect. Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I must have accidentally touched something. Skype,
You're good.
Yeah, Skype, it has a way of kind of taking over things a little bit once you got it hooked up. Let's see here. Okay, you can hear me okay now?
I can hear you perfect now.
Okay. One thing I was going to say is that I did have a chance to kind of go through your free content on YouTube, and some of that free stuff is absolutely amazing. I went through and listened to just about all of your different free videos on there. I did have a question for you about your past. When you were experimenting with the Ouija board and things like that, did you ever get caught by anybody like your parents? Did anybody take notice? Did you ever experience any repercussions for showing an interest in the occult?
Well, not necessarily with my earliest experiments with the Ouija boards. That was with my brothers and stepbrothers and cousins. We'd kind of get together and play with this stuff. And so it wasn't such a big deal at all. When I actually was about 16 and started really diving into the practice of ritual, that's when my mom I really had a hard time with it. That I think that was probably one of the biggest points where she and I would butt heads with. She was raised Lutheran, and she's considers herself to this day to be pretty atheistic, but it still scared her quite a bit. And there was the antisocial aspect of it that she was concerned about for sure. But I didn't try to hide it. This is one of the things with me is that I think I've always known that I'm just not a good liar, maybe, and so I never really try to hide anything. I'm pretty upfront and honest about most everything in my life, and so I didn't really hide it from my parents at all, so that kind of did make that did contribute to some problems with our relationship. Do I still have you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Sounded like I lost you for a minute, but yeah, no. So at one point I actually did not at one point, at several points, because of my unwavering interest in the occult. My mom did throw me out of the house, and I lived on the streets in Las Vegas for a little bit, and then kind of got my stuff together and ended up kind of becoming an adult a bit before the legal age of being an adult. So it did cause some issues, mainly not because I was trying to, and specifically because I was not trying to hide it, because I basically refused to hide it. And really that's kind of something that I stick to this day, is that this whole study and practice of magic has been something that has been completely uplifting in my life, and it has created massive change for the better in my life. And the people that I've taught this to and that have taken it and ran with it, they've had the same thing. That the people that I know that are probably the happiest, most successful, most fulfilled people are people that are actually using these occult secrets in their daily life. And so I kind of hold to the idea that we shouldn't allow ourselves to feel the need to hide this. That this is a science and really an ancient technology that can benefit anybody who uses it, and therefore there's no need to feel any kind of shame or awkwardness about it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you seem like you don't have a totally negative view about the Mormon Church. I mean, you don't seem like you hate it. How do you feel about Mormonism now?
Well, I don't have a negative view about Mormons, about the people, or really the people largely of any faith. At this point I'm living in southern Utah, and this is in the city I'm in is I think about 75% Mormon population, and they're good people. They're truly good people. They're doing what they feel is what they need to do with their lives, and for the most part, they're not pushy with it. With me, at least, they take care of each other. This is a wonderful place to live. We don't have much crime here. This is we have clean streets. We have this is a really awesome town. And I think I have to attribute some of that to people who are living in a way that's congruent with some really good ethics. However, I do have to separate the people from the religion, because in my opinion, the Abrahamic religions, so we're talking Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, are really three of the plagues that have infested this earth and have caused more disaster than anything else that's ever come upon the human race. And so, people, I do have a lot of faith and belief in people, that people are amazing and they can do an amazing amount of good, but that really religion itself kind of stifles the ability to do good and channels it towards its own self-service. That the amount of people that have died in the name of the Abrahamic God is ridiculous. The oppression of women, of homosexuals, and the ownership of people, not just in slave trade, but even ownership of children and once again women, that is instituted as part of this religion is reprehensible, and it's really not natural. There's a lot in the Abrahamic religions that seems extraordinarily unnatural. That it does push against the natural inclinations of the human being, and really does stifle people's ability to tap into their highest nature.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you so much better.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it let me go ahead and switch back to the old version of Skype, so that should take care of whatever crazy bug or whatever the heck that was going on.
Excellent.
Okay, and we left off kind of talking about your background and talking about Mormonism, and you were kind of talking about religion a little bit. So at what point did you come in contact with this Order of the Nine Angles?
Oh wow. So I started writing to when I was about 17 years old. I started writing to this representative of the Church of Satan. His name was Hervad, and so he was a German fellow that was called the Outer Representative. So with a lot of these occult orders, they have they kind of elect an outer representative to kind of be the almost PR person for their group. And so the Church of Satan had this guy Hervad, and so I got his email address, started emailing him some questions about stuff, and just kind of wanted to know a bit more about Satanism, and he referred me to a couple different groups. One was the Ordo Algolus Interstellaris Vel Infernalis, which is a pretty basic just black magic group, and then the other one was the Order of Nine Angles, and he actually sent me some. I guess you could say that they're grade rituals, and so these are basically the teachings of the Order of Nine Angles that you would need to learn and practice in order to go through the ranks of it. And so I was about 17 when I came across the information, and I kind of took a look at it, and it seemed a bit far out for me at that point. The Order of Nine Angles teaches the importance of human sacrifice as part of their tradition, and they get human sacrifice, ritual sex orgies, stuff like that was really, really hardcore. Now, I took a look at that at 17 years old and just thought that was a bit too far out there. But then I took another look at it when I was about 21 years old, and kind of started seeing that there was probably something in there that I could actually use as far as just adding to my own development, and so I started practicing from it. With the Order of Nine Angles, there's no central kind of order with it. There's no Pope of the Order of Nine Angles. It's actually set up as a system of teachings and of practices that anybody can take and use. And so I started my own temple, which is just kind of like the local gathering, and got a few people to jump in on it with me, and we started practicing all of the tenets and practices of the Order of Nine Angles, and that quickly transitioned into another group as I was really kind of making some headway with their practices. I was contacted by an offshoot group, the Temple of Blood, and the Temple of Blood has taken the traditional satanic approach and has given it a vampiric twist. That instead of slaughtering people, that you use people, you feed off of them, manipulate them, and so with the Temple of Blood, we started doing a lot of really cool works with kind of infiltrating different groups, starting up different spiritual groups, setting ourselves up as literal gods to be worshipped by these different occult groups, and so we had this central hub of just a few of us in this Temple of Blood that would kind of put our tentacles out there into a lot of different operations. And it is 100%, like I said, vampiric, where you actually are literally stealing the energy and the power of others, and so that lasted a couple years that I worked with them.
Okay, that's super interesting. Was there any sort of ethical qualms that you had or anybody else had about taking energy from other people?
Well, at that point in my life, I don't know that ethics came into play very, very much with me. I think it was probably the opposite, that I was in a period, I think, of like a personal deconstructivism, where I kind of looked at all of the things that I had been taught in society and religion and all of that, and deconstructed it and pushed against it. And so at that point there was not. Now, at this point in my life, I don't even know that I would necessarily say that I have an ethical qualm with stealing somebody's energy, other than the fact that that you're really robbing yourself. So if I'm one of the things I've seen with psychic vampires is when you take somebody's energy and you do it on a consistent enough basis, then you have to keep taking people's energy in order to keep getting it. It's like people who, if you take any kind of supplement that your body would naturally produce and you take it regularly enough, your body just stops producing that particular protein or whatever in your system. And so it's the same thing with energy, that when you're taking it from an external source, and specifically taking it from other people that are probably spiritually weaker than you are, you get dependent on it. And I'm the type of person, I don't really enjoy being dependent on things at all. And so that is the biggest qualm. I'll be honest with you, I'm a pretty selfish person in that I rather than looking at things as to whether or not they're good or bad, my ethics come down to what feels the best. And when I say, that, it's not necessarily just in the moment what's going to feel good, but in the long term, what's going to make me feel good about myself? What's going to make me feel good in life? And this is, I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and this is kind of what I pass on to her is, think through your decisions, because I always want you to feel good. And so always think about, well, how is this going to feel? I personally... one of the things that I just don't do is I don't steal anything physically from other people. I just don't take things that aren't mine because it doesn't feel good. It feels much better to go work for something and then have you have that pride where you can actually buy the things that you or build the things or trade for the things that you want. That feels a lot better, and so that's how I gear a lot of my ethics, and so. It has a lot less to do with, the harm that it might cause to another person, and I think more to do with the harm that it causes myself. And really, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I don't think altruism itself is really a real thing. That's just another form of selfishness.
I can relate to that. It seems that, well, one example I could give is, say there's a homeless guy outside of my workplace and he's begging for money. I could give him $1 and then I haven't really helped him. I've just made myself feel kind of good about myself, like I'm some kind of do-gooder, but I haven't actually really done any sort of good.
No, sure. Well, that's I had my vehicle breakdown on me. I was out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, no cell phone signal. And so I hitchhike for a few hours and finally get to a gas station in the middle of nowhere so I can call my girlfriend and have her come pick me up and help me get my car, out of the, it was basically buried in a snowbank. And a guy that was at the gas station, let me use his phone, gave me some chains for my tires and just said, just bring them back when you're done, gave me a snow shovel. And I asked him if I could pay him anything for it, and he said no, absolutely not, but just pay it forward. And so a couple days later, I see this guy outside of a store. Same situation. He did look like he probably had some sort of developmental issues of some sort. And I passed him what I had in my wallet, and like you said, it didn't do any long-term good for him. He smiled. He was probably able to eat something that day where he may not have been able to do that otherwise. But more than anything, it just made me feel good. I was like, okay, I paid it forward. That debt has been paid, and I was just able to go forward. It doesn't. Really, there's a lot more you can do to help people than just to give them things, for sure. But at the end of the day, it does come down to, you're doing something to make yourself feel good. And no matter what it is, that is, at the end of the day, that's a good thing. I'm a father. I've got a daughter, and I really work hard on being a great father. Part of that is I do want to, produce this amazing person that's going to do amazing things in this world. But even that is a selfish thing. I want to look at my daughter with pride, and I want to see her grow up, and I want to feel good about the job that I've done with her. And so it all does kind of come back to the kind of selfish personal gain with everything. And I don't think it does any good to deny that and say, no, I'm not a selfish person. the amount of good that you can do if you are a selfish person is off the charts, versus being the type of person that is always going to kind of put your own self and your own needs down. And one of the big things that just about all of my mentors, both in business and personal life as well as spirituality, have always told me is you have got to put yourself first, and then you can actually have something to give to others.
When you were involved in the psychic vampirism, how did you learn the techniques that would enable you to siphon energy from others?
There was a book that was written, it was published by Llewellyn and written by an author named Constantinos called Vampires, the Occult Truth. And I remember when I was 16 or 17, I picked this up, and in this book, he looks at the vampire subculture, and goes through various types of vampires, as far as, sanguinary vampires that actually drink blood, and all the way to psychic vampires. And he lays enough hints in there as to how to actually do this that I read through it, and he did not write this book as a manual of any sort, quite the opposite. But I've just, once again, I have that mind that I can look at information and really dissect it pretty well. And so I just dissected his information, figured out the method, and then started practicing it. And I took what he had taught me, and then I looked at this energy transfer ritual that I'd come across, where you lay your right hand on the person you're trying to give energy to, and as you breathe in, you feel your energy and the energy of the just existence around you collecting inside of your body, and then as you breathe out, you push that out your right arm and out your hand into that person. And you just do this with several repetitions, and you can actually feed them your energy to heal them or give them a boost or whatever. So I looked at this one and kind of looked at the mechanism of it. And in spiritual tradition, your right hand gives and your left hand takes. And so I went and found people to experiment with, put my left hand on them and just did the opposite. Felt and became aware of the energy that's within that person, and then just breathed in. And as I breathed in, I pulled their energy from them into myself. And so it was a pretty natural thing. And anybody that really wants to experiment with that can really do that. I mean, to give or to take energy in that way. The first little bit that I experimented with this, it was with volunteers, people that were just around me that I say, hey, I'm going to do something weird. Are you in on it? And then I would do it. And I remember the first time that I took somebody's energy from them in this way, they started getting really, really dizzy. He started, and this was, in high school in my construction technologies class. And he started getting really kind of lightheaded, dizzy, started feeling nauseous, and then passed out in class and had to go home for the rest of the day. Came back the next day and he said, never, ever, ever do that to me again. Okay, perfect. So I really learned it through trial and error. Now, when I joined up with the Temple of Blood, they don't even use the word psychic vampirism, because it basically, with psychic vampirism, you're feeding off of the aura of the person. With the Temple of Blood, what they do is they actually go into the chakras, or the energy centers of the individual, and take energy from the chakras, and specifically the solar plexus. And what that does is that gives you access to kind of deep core energy from that person. And so with that, you can, if you have about 3 people that are feeding off of somebody's energy through their chakras, then it's really easy to get that person extraordinarily ill, or sometimes to kill them through doing that.
Well, this is particularly interesting to me. A lot of the topics that I cover on this show are related to conspiracy, the hidden elite, the Illuminati, and one of the major things that these people get accused of, if they even exist, is some form of, I guess you could say it's similar to the vampirism that you talked about, where they're often accused of eating or drinking blood, or eating people, or doing these sexual rituals in order to somehow create or siphon off energy.
Yeah, one of the rituals in the Order of Nine Angles is called the the ceremony of recalling. And it's basically the idea is that there are these dark ancient gods that exist, and you do this ritual that brings them back into this world. And the main component for the ritual is orgy. And so you have all of these people, basically as many people as you can get. The greatest number of people that you want to have in a ritual orgy is 50. And so if you can get 50 people together to have this sexual orgy while they're all chanting, you've got symbols all over the temple, and so everybody's looking at these symbols and charging them. What's interesting about it is that there's usually a master of the temple, being the kind of leader of the group, and the mistress of the temple, being the female leader of the group, that do not participate in the orgy. What they are doing is they're taking the energy of the orgy and pushing it into a crystal tetrahedron, and that is activating this gateway that the dark gods return through. Now, the reason I bring this up is you can take any emotion. If you know what you're looking for and you're adept at moving energy, you can take an emotion that's being generated by a massive amount of people and channel it to whatever goal you want. And it's interesting. I try to avoid the news, specifically in the United States, because it's geared towards stimulating a lot of emotion. Whether it's anti this person or pro this person or whatever. All of the topics never really get dissected as far as the information, because it's just all emotional. That really our media feeds us these massive emotions, and I have to think that there are, and I know for a fact that there are people that are taking this massive amount of emotion that's being spit up by everybody who's engaging in this, and is pushing it towards some goal or another. And one of the things that's a fun thing to do is to go to a Pentecostal or Baptist church on Sunday and just notice the amount of energy in the room, and then you can literally just sit still in the midst of the congregation as they're going wild, being filled with the Holy Spirit, and just breathe in and get filled with that energy. It's permeating.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I've noticed that even when I was a kid, I was semi kind of raised in a Catholic environment, and when you go into the church and you see those big stained glass windows and you smell the incense and all of that, the atmosphere itself seems to kind of have an effect on your state or your being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's and once again, it doesn't matter what the religion is or what the system is. That we're using these symbols and if you can engage all of your senses in a ritual, then you're really going to be able to target some pretty deep states and make some pretty awesome things happen. And so you'll have the sacrament, which is engaging your sense of both your tactile sense as well as your taste. And then the incense is going to be the smells, the sights, and then the sounds. I mean, you're activating all of your senses in a pretty massive way. Now, if you enter into such a ritual or ceremony as the operator of it, as the person who's actually putting that energy out there, but at the same time is moving it towards the goal, then you can actually, you can really harness it in a massive way. If you're just kind of going along with it and you're not really directing it anywhere, that's when it becomes, in my opinion, kind of problematic. That's when you do start to get almost addicted to the experience of it. Is when you're not really pushing it anywhere. You almost kind of need that, and that's a lot of people who are highly religious, that they have this sense of needing to go to church on Sunday, needing to be in their congregation. And it does basically just stimulate that same type of feeling. If you take that emotional discharge and the spiritual discharge that goes along with that and funnel it towards things, then you can actually start to develop some practical changes in your world.
That's really interesting. Earlier you said that groups of people can create these changes, and one huge phenomena that we have going on, you see it all the time on YouTube, a lot of my personal friends and fans of the show talk about it, it's called the Mandela Effect, where we notice these changes like the old kids' books, the Berenstain Bears, suddenly they became the Berenstain Bears, or there might be anatomical changes to the human skeleton or the body. Do you feel that these changes that we're seeing, could this be coming from a magical or occult source?
Yeah, I mean, well, all right. So when we look at this on a societal level, absolutely. If you drive through any town, you're going to see a million occult symbols everywhere around you. You see the pentagram is massive. You'll see it everywhere. If you're looking for it, you see the logos on cars, the medallions that they'll have on fronts of cars. If you start looking at them, are occult symbols, ancient Nordic runes that you can really start to see that there's a magical influence everywhere around us. But then on the development of the individual, there is a magical thing that's going on that we are being. I don't want to say we are being pushed. We are pushing ourselves in a direction of self-evolution, self-guided evolution, and so yeah, you can see some pretty intense changes in, even like you said, even the anatomical changes that individuals are going through all over the place. You look at the growth of the human being, just our height and size, and how that's changed with medical technology as well as diet and everything else. But this is all directed for sure. That this is part of our own self-directed evolution.
Could this be similar to what Aleister Crowley talked about when he was talking about the great coming age of Horus?
Yeah. Well, okay. So Horus was a war god. Now, when Crowley started talking about the coming age of Horus, he started speaking about this in the very early 1900s, and then we've entered into a massive. I mean, the entire last century was a century of war for sure. And so he did predict that, he prophesied it, and according to some rumors, he even attempted to have a hand in it in his dealings in Italy. He was ousted out of Italy by Mussolini. Mussolini basically called him the most evil man alive and kicked him out. And this is Mussolini, and so yeah, he like I said, he predicted and prophesied this coming age of Horus. And now, since we're on the topic of ages and eras, one of the things that I've noticed is that 2012, December 21st, 2012, was very important. And if we look back on history and just the last few years since 2012, we can see that there's been a massive unfolding. Now, I can see this in my business for sure, in the amount of people that are coming forward and showing interest in their own self-guided spirituality rather than orthodox spirituality. That people are really jumping into these occult studies in a massive way, like has never been seen before. We're actually this upcoming Monday, we are releasing a book series, or a couple books. It's the Lucifer Chronicles, Awakening Lucifer, and the Rites of Lucifer. And this is by Saineth Mason and Bill Duvendak. Now, I got on an interview with Bill Duvendak to just interview him about the book and see what it was about and get his thoughts on it. And what we came to is that we have entered into a new era, and this is the era of Lucifer, the Enlightener. That we are definitely leaving the age of strict materialism and even strict scientism, and moving into an era of hopefully greater enlightenment and greater autonomy. And I think we can see this even with the millennials, for instance. That the people that are growing up and taking over this planet are a lot less concerned about the material things that my father was concerned about. The keeping up with the Joneses isn't so much a thing anymore. Having the best boats and the best cars just does not matter as much to as many people, and so we're moving beyond that. But people are definitely getting more into experience, that rather than possessions, that they want to experience things, and this is why we're seeing a massive upsurge in different music festivals and gatherings, and people are more concerned, I think, now with having memorable experiences rather than having shiny toys, and this is just one trademark of this age of Lucifer that we've now entered into.
Now, this age of Lucifer, is this something that is naturally coming about, or could all of these Luciferians that are part of government and part of church organizations, could they be helping to usher it in because of their beliefs?
Well, yeah. I mean, and this is part of what Bill Divendak and I talked about, is that it is, okay. So for one, the elites that we could call Luciferians, the whole elite idea is also falling to the wayside, because when we're talking about elitism, we're talking about a small group of people controlling the masses, and we basically entered into a realm of almost of democratic spirituality, where everybody has access to pretty much the same knowledge. This is one of the interesting things about the work that I do, because before Become a Living God came around, before I started this project, there was no real way to get your hands on this super secret occult information. It was hidden from the masses for a reason, because it is very, very powerful in creating change in this world. And so the elite definitely wanted to keep it, under guard and keep that as their own hidden weapon. Well, at this point, with the work that I'm doing, and not just me, because I'm seeing it exploding all over the place, these secrets are out there and anybody can take them and use them. And so we're seeing that the elites they just don't have the power that they once did. And they're trying to hold on to it with everything they've got. You look at what's going on politically, you look at what's going on in Orthodox religion, and they're terrified because they're losing. And so I don't know that they're necessarily, they don't want this age of Lucifer to come about, because what that means is enlightenment for all. And autonomy for all. That doesn't benefit the elites. So this is actually being created not by the elites, but by everybody else. Everybody else who is fed up with it and done with it and is moving forward without the blessing of government and religion.
Some people will tell you that Lucifer is actually the same person as Jesus. Would you agree with that at all?
I mean, no. There's a massive amount of evidence that Jesus was an invention of the Romans in order to cause a division amongst the Jews, and but then if we look at the archetype or the mythological pattern of Jesus and Lucifer, there is quite a bit of similarity. And then if you even look deeper, people who are into gematria and into numerology and that sort of thing definitely have found a lot of connections between Lucifer and Jesus, and there definitely could be. In this book, Awakening Lucifer, what these authors have done is taken a good look at every single system out there that they can get their hands on, and I mean, ranging from the Mayans and Aztecs to Egypt and Samaria, and seeing the presence of Lucifer. This is something that I've done in my own work as well. Is when you look at all of the world religions, ancient and modern, you can see that in the mythologies the same beings show up over and over and over again, and in very, very similar forms, if not completely identical forms, that these beings have made themselves known to everybody on this planet in some form or another. And so Lucifer has taken many, many incarnations, and I mean, you definitely could draw a parallel between Lucifer and Jesus for sure. I mean, one of the prime aspects of Lucifer is that he is the light bearer and the enlightener, but at the same time is the adversary. That he is the he's the being and the force that challenges the existing order. And so that's exactly what, according to Scripture, that's exactly what Jesus did his entire earthly ministry.
And this interview you did with Bill, how could I listen to that?
That is going to be going up on YouTube at my YouTube channel at EA Koetting on YouTube, and that'll be going up in the next few days, I believe, if it's not already up. So that's and it is great. This Bill Dubmendak and Saint Mason both have done this exhaustive research and practical study. See, this is one of the things that sets what I do and what those who do business with me do, and it sets us apart from just about everybody else. Is we'll do the study and the academic research, but then we'll follow that up with practice. So, if I'm going to come across this information about Lucifer and find out that Lucifer has taken this or that form in another religion, well, then I have to follow that through with actually calling upon that entity and verifying that for myself and getting in contact with that entity to really see if that indeed is the case. I've done this with Thoth, and I've taken Thoth and have found out that he has taken all these many forms as Ningazita, Quetzalcoatl, Lucifuge, Rofakel, that he's taken all of these forms throughout many systems, and then my work then was to go and summon forth all of these spirits or invoke them or somehow make direct contact with these spiritual forces. And that's exactly what Bill and Nathanael have both done, is not just researching, but then experimenting with it in a practical way by summoning forth these entities, making contact with them, and then kind of delivering, here's how you make contact with Lucifer in all of his many forms with all of his masks.
Now, you did mention Lucifage just now, and I do remember hearing you bring up that particular entity in one of your videos. Now, Lucifage is actually different from Lucifer, correct?
Yeah. So Lucifer is the bringer of light. Lucifuge is he who shuns the light, or he who flees away from the light. So even taking the word, the etymological breakdown, Luca is light, or Luz is light, and then fuge is to flee or to fly. And so Lucifuge is basically the polar opposite of Lucifer. That one of them is the light bringer, and the other one flees away from the light.
And do these two entities get mixed up?
Yeah, I mean, they do. And I think that's just from people not really doing any research or even thinking about it too carefully. They're basically looking at it at the similarity in the name, or at least the prefix "lus," and just running on it with that. But yeah, I think people do get it mixed up a bit. And really, when you start looking into the origins of these spirits and looking into their names, looking into the etymology, there's an exhaustive amount of research that can be done to really find out who they are and what they're about. And once you do that, you do start to discover that they're completely different. I mean, for instance, most people will link Lucifer and Satan as being the same being. They'll say, that's Lucifer was maybe just the name of Satan before the fall, or that they're just different aspects of Satan, and that's not really true at all. These are entirely separate beings. Lucifer and Satan are they're not night and day as much as Lucifer and Lucifuge are, but they are completely different entities.
How would you describe the main differences between how Lucifer might go about things, or his philosophies, versus Satan?
Well, so Lucifer is, once again, the light bringer, the illuminator, and an adversarial force. Now, in that way, one of the things that Bill talks about in both in the book as well as in the interview I did with him is that the term Lucifer can be seen as a title, as can the name Satan, or the term Satan can be a title. At the same time, these are also beings. Now, Lucifer is the enlightener, the illuminator. He mainly wants to invoke a sense of self-governing upon the individual. And so he brings light into all that is in darkness within yourself, within your world, within your experience, and shines light there so you can kind of see where things could be better. You can see your own flaws and your own faults, and then you can start to correct them. Now, Satan is a chaotic force. So Lucifer is extraordinarily controlled quite a bit. That I mean, and by that I mean that Lucifer is very composed in his personality, in all the many forms. Very composed, very, very clear about who he is and what he's doing. Satan, one of the earlier forms of Satan was Yam Nahar, and this was Canaanites that I think came up with the title Yam Nahar, and this is the watery serpent of the deep, also called Leviathan and Typhon, and has gone by many names, Yorgomons. And this is the chaotic force of change, possibly of destruction. And so that is really one of the big polar differences, is that Lucifer is extremely controlled, very pointed, and very clear, whereas Satan is very, very chaotic, and is that serpent of the deep that just roars his head and can devour the world in doing so.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I've heard online, or somebody might have told me, that Satanism is actually really old, that it goes back to the times of Sumeria and back then, before Christianity was even created.
If you specifically look at the Yazidi cult at this point they're mainly around Iran and Iraq. That this is a cult of devil worshippers that have been around for before the first books of the Bible were written, for sure, possibly predating Judaism and Abrahamic religion as a whole. Although that's really hard to say, because they're so extraordinarily secretive that you can't really get your hands on their texts and their information. There are some books that are out there that are supposedly derived from the Yazidi, but those have kind of been debunked, and so it's really hard to say. But yeah, there are definitely these groups that have existed for quite a while, that are still extant, that have worshipped that satanic force.
Are there still a lot of these secret societies or occult groups that have managed to remain completely hidden, even in this day and age of the internet?
Oh, there are. Yes, there are. And these are what I usually talk about, and what I teach people is the practical spirituality aspect of things. Here's how you do a ritual to make this particular effect happen in your life, and or that sort of thing. Now, you do have these groups that use the occult, and use occult symbology and even occult ritual as almost a mask for criminal activity, for child abuse and sexual slavery and this sort of thing. And I really can't take them seriously as being a spiritually powerful group, that they're using these spiritual terms and these spiritual symbols, like I said, just like a mask for their criminal activity. And so these groups are definitely still very, very secretive. Most of the groups that are operating with a spiritual or magical aspect in mind have no interest in being secret at this point, because we are in this age of Lucifer where you can absolutely reveal what you need to reveal and have really an outpouring of support and further empowerment of your ideas and concepts just by having it out in public domain. There are, I've made enemies with a lot of these groups that don't want this information to be given out freely. And so even though they bring themselves, their presence out to the public and say, we are here and here's our website, that if you don't sign up for their initiations and pay their initiation dues and their membership dues, that you don't get the secrets of the information. And so that's in doing what I do, which is revealing these secrets and giving that information out to people. I've made a lot of enemies because they don't want that. But for the most part, most of the groups that are indeed very, very hidden still are not very magical groups. But once again, they're criminal groups that just hide behind this magic.
Have you experienced any vengeance or reprisal from any enemies in the occult world that may have tried to put curses on you and things like that?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I have people that are around the clock trying to put curses on me, and sometimes I can feel it. Sometimes I can feel, and it's almost indescribable. It's just a feeling of a psychic pressure pushing down on me, and then I simply dissolve it. I go through. I teach all of this stuff, and I practice all of this stuff in my daily life. So as soon as I notice that something has gotten through, the defenses of my home and the defenses that I've kind of put up in my world, I do have armies of spirits that are protecting me constantly. If anything does get through, then I'm able to banish it pretty easily. But there are definitely people trying, and there are people that make threats and there have been times when I've had to get police involved with people who've made death threats and are trying to actually do something physically against me or my family and that sort of thing. And that doesn't happen too often, but when it does, once again, it has been so far pretty easy to deter for sure.
You said invisible pressures. Do you ever get a sensation like an invisible dagger or a sword stabbing you in the organs?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had that, but I'll tell you what, I started looking into the mythology of the biblical mythology, specifically New Testament mythology, and some of the terms that Jesus used supposedly in talking about these things. And he described the fiery darts of the adversary. And he described the sword and shield of righteousness. And now you can see that these are metaphors that are being used, but you can also push that to going, well, maybe these are literal spiritual things. And so I started thinking about that several years ago, and thinking, well, what if the adversary does have fiery darts that you can actually throw at another person? And so I sat and I visualized that I had one of these darts in my hand as I'm sitting there with a group of friends, and I flicked my wrist and just made a throwing motion and visualized this dart going into my friend's side. Now at that point, and this was just in experimenting. I didn't know if it would work or not. I thought it might, but just visualized as clearly as I could, threw it into his side, and he instantly fell to the floor, collapsed, grabbing his side. And he looked up at me and said, "What did you do?" He knew immediately that had come from me. And so I took my left hand. Once again, the right hand gives and the left hand takes. And so I took my left hand, pulled the dart out of him, and once again, just through visualization and connecting with the energy of it, and the pain went away instantly. And so yeah, these things can definitely be used as psychic weapons for sure.
Have you ever experimented with what are called thought forms or tulpas?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And this is so a good deal of the spirits that exist in grimoires that you can call up are in some way or another thought forms or egregores that you can and you can create them. So I've got something that I'll do is. On top of all of the online products and services that I offer, I do have what I call a black magic boot camp. That people actually will come out to me. I'll take them out to these sacred locations. I live, like I said, in southern Utah, and I am surrounded by spiritual hotspots. And so I'll take people out to these spiritual hotspots and personally teach them anything that they want to know about magic. And I'll usually do a small group, 5 or 6 people, and almost every time I have a group of people come out for this, that's one of the things we'll do is create a thought form. And so I'll give them the task of thinking about what change you want to manifest in your life. Do you want more money? Do you want more psychic clarity or whatever it is, love? And then I'll say, okay, so start drawing or writing a description of an entity that you think might embody the thing that you want to possess and have, and so they'll start just using their imaginations and creating this character, and I'll have them start to sketch it out, and then draw out, just making it up, just imagining it, a symbol of that spirit, or a sigil that they can use. And once they have all this information together, and then I have them create a name. What would be the name of this spirit? And this is all 100% created from their imagination. And then we take those imagined characters, and then through methods of evocation, create them in the astral plane, and then summon them forth and put them to work in that person's life. And so you can do this. Now, if you spend a lot of time thinking about something and investing yourself in it and feeling emotionally as if it's real, then you're creating a thought form. Whether or not you're doing it through ritual or whatever is not really important. It's the investment of time and attention that's important. And so if you're investing yourself in any thought for long enough, then it can be real. You can take your imaginary friends, and they can become very, very real if you're investing yourself in that way.
So this is a topic that I'm sure that a lot of people are interested in the occult and magic for this very reason. But the topic is money. And what you're telling me is by getting involved with this stuff and visualizing, I can actually increase the amount in my bank account.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, it is ridiculous to me to think about my life, and I never run out of money. I always have more money than I could possibly spend. I live in a nice home. I have 2 motorcycles. I have 2 vehicles. I've got a charmed life, and the money never ends. The money never stops. If it's not coming from one source, it's coming from another source. And when it starts to dwindle, when I start seeing the bank account maybe getting a little lower than I want it to be, I perform a simple ritual. I mean, I draw a symbol on a piece of paper. I gaze at it while I'm visualizing certain things, while I'm feeling certain things, engaging myself spiritually, opening up a gateway for that money to flow to me. And usually within a day, I have the money that I need. Now, or at least within a day, at the very worst, I have news of the arrival of more money. And so, mind you, I've been doing this and investing myself in it for so long and so intensely that it's become very, very easy for me. Some people might experience a few days or a couple weeks delay time. But once again, this is a system. You plug yourself into the system, and it does work. Yeah, I mean, anything that you desire, money, love, relationships. I do advise people to stay away from controlling love spells and that sort of thing, because I do think that there's an ethical concern there. It's if you're putting a spell on somebody to make them fall in love with you, then that's kind of really similar to rape, and I don't agree with that. But you can nevertheless summon forth somebody that's going to be perfect for you in a relationship. Anything that you desire, you can really have. If you can imagine it, you can use magic to draw it to you.
So just like the old Disney movie Aladdin, where the blue genie, who's talked by Robin Williams, he says that he can't make anybody fall in love with you. That's actually coming from a reality.
Well, I mean, you can make people. You can use magic to make people think that they're in love with you, and they can feel that love very strongly. You're basically presenting an illusion that person believes in the moment, and so you can do that. Now, here's the problem with it: that when you're doing something like that, you are overwhelming their natural inclinations. If they naturally wouldn't want to be in love with you, and that's why you're doing the spell. Now, their natural state is going to resume. You can push them and impose this illusion momentarily, but it is only momentarily. Usually within a couple days or sometimes a couple weeks, that spell is going to fade. And so that person is going to kind of wake up from this stupor and go, "What the hell am I doing with you?" And and that is one of the biggest dangers, I think, to the magician who's putting these spells on people, is that often you're going to fall in love with that person and think that it's real. You're going to forget that you did the spell. They're going to wake up from their stupor and realize that they don't want to be with you, and then you're brokenhearted over the situation. And that person now hates you because they have no idea what you did to make them fall in love with you. And so any chance of a real relationship is destroyed. So yeah, you cannot make people truly fall in love with you, but you can place an illusion into them that makes them think that they are.
So actually, wanting things that could be considered more material, like money, cars, and things like that, that's actually safer than trying to mess with the human heart.
Oh yeah, much safer. Well, and one of the things that I try to get people who I teach this stuff to do is to take other people out of your equations. Okay, so let's say that you want money. A lot of people kind of micromanage that, and they say, okay, so I want to work for this multi-level marketing company, and I want to have these other people bring me that money, and and they're involving too many other people in their scheme. Instead, you just say, okay, I want money, I want wealth, I want prosperity. You visualize yourself in the end result having that money. And then you perform the ritual as if that money is already in your hands. That's kind of the visualization. It doesn't require any other person. It doesn't even require a vehicle of that money coming about. All that you know is that you're going to have that money, and then that money comes. And with that, you're leaving the path completely open for the things that you desire to come to you, rather than micromanaging it and really limiting the scope of what magic can do for you. And that, I mean, people are definitely the wild card, and we as human beings are creating our reality, and we have a really, really amazing ability to bend our reality to our will. Whether or not we're doing it consciously isn't important. We are constantly creating our reality through our observation of it. Now, with that, I do not believe, Daniel, that I have created you. I actually believe that you are an independent entity that is experiencing your own godhood in this kind of matrix of reality. Now, with that, I can impose my will upon that matrix of reality without any issue. As soon as it comes to imposing my will upon you, that's when it gets much more difficult, because you're also a creator. You are a living God here on this planet as well, and so you're going to push back in your own direction with the things that you desire. And so, really, once again, if you can take the other people out of the equation and create the reality that you want, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with manipulating other people, you're going to have a lot more success.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of my friends and fans of the show, they've had a lot of trouble distinguishing this idea that everything is self, and that other people can still be actual independent beings. It's hard to figure out sometimes.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's super hard to figure out. Well, then, when you get into these really high mystical states, you kind of get to the point of realizing that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself in different bodies, that we are all source that has kind of split itself into these illusions of separateness, and so there's that you kind of have to deal with. But really, what even with that, if we are all source that has split itself into these separate incarnations, well, that does create the separateness. That separateness is in a way real. We are all linked for sure, and we're really not meant to be. We're not gods in a vacuum. We were meant to learn from each other, to experience each other, to be challenged by each other, and so that's But once again, the world around you, it is not an illusion. And I got into that trap for a while, just going, all of this reality is illusion. It's all Maya. Well, I'm sorry, but if I fall, I do I do rock climbing, rappelling, canyoneering. I do a lot of outdoor adventures, and I know that if I don't have my harness and my rope on, I could easily fall to my death. I mean, I'm not going to escape gravity. That is a very real force. I can probably, in some instances, overwhelm the natural forces momentarily, or I can bend the natural forces to my will if I'm focusing on it in a specific way. But once again, there is a almost a default reality that does snap into place once you fall off of a cliff.
Which is probably good. Otherwise, everything would probably just look like smeared paint.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there is the school of thought that is really hugely influenced by Tantra and yoga that is your perception of reality. That I perceive that gravity is a reality and therefore it's real for me. But at the same time, I've got a couple theories with this. One is that we do have our own perceived reality as individuals, but we also have a common observation of reality, and we are enmeshed in this universal consciousness, or this at least consciousness of our species, where all of us believe and observe the same thing, and that itself makes it real.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. How do you feel about the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, and all of that stuff? Do you have any friends that are Satanists?
Yeah, I've got a couple friends that are like LaVeyan Satanists for sure. It seems like it's more of a humanistic philosophy than it is a magical path. Anton LaVey himself kind of didn't even really believe in the magic part of it. He really attributed Satan and the entire satanic paradigm as being basically just an adversarial paradigm that pushed against Christianity and elevated the individual in a way that gives the individual responsibility, accountability, and freedom for his or her own self. And so it's I guess it's an all right philosophy, but it is pretty lacking in the in regards to any kind of spirituality or especially magical. When I look at Michael Aquino and Anton LaVey, and I look at the things that they've actually published, they have specifically said that they don't believe in magic. They don't believe in the supernatural. Well, in that case, stop using supernatural terms. Stop using magical symbolism to get your views out there. I mean, they've basically taken some sacred symbols and sacred terms and magical terminology and have co-opted it to explain something that they don't feel is very magical.
Yeah, that does seem to be true. I have to wonder if, like Michael Aquino, he's worked for the NSA, and I'm not sure if LaVey was involved with the government, but maybe that's why, because they have to work with all these people that just don't believe in anything like that.
And that could be, and Michael Aquino has gone back and forth on it, where he has his whole backstory is that he started performing these rituals with Anton LaVey, and Anton didn't believe in them at all. It was just psychodrama. But that in doing so, Michael had this aha experience of meeting with Set and having a real contact with this spiritual entity. And then later on, he says, "Well, none of this is real." Well, what was the awakening? What was the aha moment then? And even throughout the Satanic Bible, it's for instance, LaVey gives his death curse, the destruction ritual, and he says, the primary purpose of this is to get the emotion of anger out of yourself, to exhaust it from yourself, so you're not hindered by it. And then he says, and if the person that you do the curse on actually dies, then that's good too. But that's kind of like a side effect that maybe isn't the primary intention, and that's odd to me that he at one hand kind of admits that this could have power, but he doesn't want to say it outright.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that often comes up in these sort of discussions, especially in the UFO sort of alien field, is this idea that what people are experiencing with the alien abductions and things like that, it might actually be something more along the line of spiritual entities, demonic. Do you think there's any possibility to that?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think the term demonic gets thrown out quite a bit when it's maybe not appropriate. But look, when you look into I have looked really, really closely into the UFO phenomenon and into the abduction phenomenon, and What's interesting is that there is a sense of bilocation, that a lot of people who are abducted say that they can feel the metal table, the examination table underneath them, but at the same time they're aware of their body still being in their bed, that they're in two places at once. You know, they'll see an owl and simultaneously see an alien. And so you do have this shift. You know, one of the things that let's see, what was his name? Greer, Stephen Greer, maybe.
You got it right, Stephen Greer.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that he said, I was listening to him on Coast to Coast a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that he said is that in order for some of these entities are coming from other dimensions, that they are interdimensional. Now, even if there's a species that's coming from another planet, in order to travel the distance that they're traveling, they're not going in a straight line. They would by necessity, they would have to enter into another dimension in order to travel that distance and then pop back into this dimension. So regardless of where they originated from, they are interdimensional. And that is a really interesting way of looking at it. But for sure, what's going on with the UFO phenomenon is really, really super odd. And I think it was Jacques Vallée that said something along the lines of the whole phenomenon is meant to make us question, because you'll have objects like the Phoenix Lights, for instance. You have objects that people are seeing as physical objects, but there's no physical evidence of them being there. And that they are simultaneously physical and non-physical, and that possibly the whole purpose of their existence in our reality is to challenge our notion of what reality itself is.
Yeah, I also have to think about the story of, I'm sure you've heard of the story of Jack Parsons when he went and opened up that portal. It was somewhere around Area 51. And instead of a monster coming through, a UFO shot through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's I've driven past Area 51 a few times, and there's some very, very interesting things that go on in that little strip of desert for sure. But yeah, no, Jack Parsons, he did some really, really interesting experiments for sure that did have some kind of relation for sure to what we're now seeing as the UFO phenomenon. Which at the point that he was doing it, one of the theories that's been put out there by some friends of mine who are occultists and ufologists at the same time is that actually did open up almost a tear between the worlds that has brought more and more of these extraterrestrials or interdimensionals into our awareness, for sure. And we can see a pretty intense increase in UFO phenomenon ever since then.
Would you ever attempt something that major?
I would. I would, and I have attempted rituals that open up gateways into other realms and that sort of thing. I specifically intentionally avoid getting too personally familiar with the UFO experience. I know what I would have to do to call on a UFO, to actually get it to show up, and it wouldn't be difficult. I know right where I would have to go and what I'd have to do, and it turns out that if you go to these certain places like Joshua Tree, for instance, go there and look up in the sky and wait for a UFO, and if you are waiting with kind of the right intention, you're going to see one. You're going to have something show up. But that's an experience that I don't know at this point in my life would be largely beneficial.
Now, is there really a demonic hierarchy with Satan or Lucifer at the top and maybe little imps at the bottom?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Okay, so one of the things I've seen, like I said, if you look at every world religion, ancient and modern, you can see that the same entities appear over and over and over. Now, I have specifically identified 9 of them. 9 entities that appear in every single religion in some form, and they're usually they have trademark characteristics that let me know that this is the same entity that's showing itself to a different culture and is being interpreted differently, but it is the exact same entity, and I've identified 9 of them. and I don't know that it's a hierarchy. It's more of like a group, a small group of extraordinarily powerful beings that have made contact with humans, and then from there, a good deal of the offshoots and all these other demons and angels and spirits and all of this, a good deal of that is self-created. That as soon as you start naming these entities and giving them attributes, you are creating these thought forms, and then as more and more people believe these thought forms, that they actually become real. And so the fact that they're thought forms doesn't make them not real. They are actual real entities, but that these 9 were the original entities, that these were the original ones that made contact with the human race. And I call these entities the gatekeepers. That's how they've referred to themselves when I've worked with them. And I'll be doing a work in 2018. A massive working of kind of unveiling each of these 9 and working with them and kind of bringing them out to the public, for sure. But yeah, as far as the hierarchy, it seems like there's not, and within these 9, it doesn't seem like there's one that has dominance over the other, but they are all pretty equal, and they see each other as being equal, but they have different attributes or powers or capabilities, just as different people would. But they definitely are. There's not a hierarchy; it's more of a collaboration.
Are there lower astral creatures like little imps and critters that might come up and bite you or try to feed off of you?
Well, one of the interesting things I've seen, to answer that question directly, yes, there are. I mean, if you can imagine it, I guarantee it exists on the astral plane. But one of the interesting things I've seen is that if you spend any time meditating and getting into a spiritual state, you'll start to notice things moving on your peripheral vision. You'll start to notice sounds kind of appearing, maybe voices that sound like they might be distant, footsteps, this sort of thing. I think it was Donald Michael Craig in one of his books called these little nasties, so that they're just wandering astral entities that really aren't powerful at all, but they notice your bright light, the bright light of your aura, and they're drawn to you like moths to a flame. And these do appear, show up, and the biggest thing they're looking for is attention and recognition, and so you can give it to them. When I notice that kind of thing, little poltergeisty things around the house, or even just that peripheral, little things appearing in the peripheral vision, I'll simply acknowledge it and say, hey, I know that you're here, so thanks for showing up. Just don't mess with anything too bad, and for the most part, it's a pretty friendly coexistence with these little things.
Could some of them actually be, like, say a person dies and they're headed towards the white light, but they don't want to go, they want to stay on this earthly plane, and then they have to start feeding off of energy to survive. Could a phenomenon like that exist?
Yeah, that's and that is, that can be in the form of psychic vampirism, that those entities, those spirits of the dead, can start to feed off of other people, feed off of the attention of others, and that sort of thing. That I think that's somewhat rare. I think most of the time, when you find spirits of people that seem to be trapped here, the reason that they're trapped is usually due to some sort of trauma. And what you're actually seeing is that's not the eternal soul of that individual. That's almost like an echo that remains in this world of them, and what, like I said, is usually induced by some sort of sudden mass trauma. That something happens that usually ends their life or something like that. And it creates almost like a residual impression of that person. This is why when you see these hauntings and this sort of thing, you can see that the spirit is doing the things that it would have done in life. It's basically replaying life. It doesn't necessarily know that it's dead. And once again, this is not the eternal soul of that person. It's just an impression that's been made upon the psychic world by that person and by whatever occurred to them to create that impression.
In that case, should we be careful when we try to contact dead loved ones, because it could just be one of these residual type of things?
Yeah, I think for the most part, if you're trying to communicate with the spirit of a dead person, you're getting the residual energy of them, and you can get that, and you can learn some amazing things from them if you want to, and whatnot. But you're not talking to their eternal soul. I mean, their eternal soul has gone somewhere else, whether that's into the white light or into another incarnation or whatever. And so. Or by some beliefs, maybe it's just dissipated into the source and has been recycled into the all. And whatever the case, the eternal soul is not lingering around waiting for loved ones to call it. One of the big dangers that I've seen in necromancy, and the reason that I avoid it, is you tend to become like the things you surround yourself with. And so, if I work with negative spirits and call on these negative violent spirits, and I do that enough, I'm going to become a negative, violent person. Now, if I work with spirits of the dead, who are dead and decaying, and I work with them enough, my body and my life is going to eventually start to break down. Most of the necromancers that I've known are not very healthy, happy people. And so that is something to always keep in mind when you're working with things magically and spiritually, is you have to be very careful, because you do become like the things you surround yourself with.
Have you ever done any experimentation with remote viewing, aka scrying?
I've done both, yeah. Well, and I would say scrying and remote viewing are slightly different. Scrying, you can gaze into a mirror or even into the air in front of you, allow your psychic vision to awaken and have a pretty direct visual experience of what you're trying to see, whether that's something in this world or something in the other worlds. With remote viewing is a bit more technical, and I actually had somebody who uses remote viewing for their living. He specifically remote views different. He uses it to gamble, basically. He does boat races, horse races, that sort of thing. Remote views the end result and makes a really good living at it. And so he started teaching me how to do this, and it's really technical, and it's not necessarily as visual as scrying, but you do get a very interesting end result where, the way that I was taught is to simply draw a line down a piece of paper, and on the left-hand side to draw a picture, whatever starts coming to mind, and then on the right-hand side, on the right column, you're going to write whatever descriptive words come to mind. And you're not necessarily seeing the end result, but I'll see, something that looks like a tree with a circle on it. So I'll draw a tree with a circle, and then I'll write on the side panel, red, blue, and green, and then I kind of come up with this picture and these descriptive words, and then I would turn it into him. And that example was a Ferris wheel. He would have these photos of different things, and would just give me a number for the photo. The photo was in an envelope that had the same number written on it. So you say, he'd give me the string of numbers and say, remote view into this. And I would turn it in, and then he would show me the picture, and he'd say, yeah, okay, so that, you drew it accurately, and you described it accurately. And so, once again, remote viewing is a bit more technical than scrying. I prefer scrying because it is it's a little harder. Scrying is, because you do have to trust yourself quite a bit more. You have to kind of put aside the thoughts of, well, am I just making this up? Am I just, imagining these things? And you have to kind of trust the experience. But once you learn how to do that, you can have a much more real-time experience with what you're trying to view into.
Are you into any sort of divination, prophesizing type stuff? Like, will you play around with some tarot cards, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't play around with them. I use them pretty seriously as magical tools. At one point I did that for my full-time living. Just set up shop in Las Vegas, and would have people come by all day long and read tarot for them. At this point, I'll use it in consultations. I do consultations, and so as people, I'll get on the phone with people and they'll have issues. I'll throw down some tarot cards and look at it and get an idea of what's going on, kind of behind the scenes. I mean, you can use tarot to predict what is going to happen if the person continues on the path that they're walking, and then you can start to go from there and go, now if you make this choice, here's how things will change, and if you make this choice, here's how things will change. You give them different options. The thing is that the future is still being created, it's still manifesting, and so even the knowledge of what could happen can change that. And so making any kind of prediction is really, really risky business. And you see people who are these psychics and channelers and whatever that make these predictions, especially if they make public predictions about what's going to happen in the world, that their track record is usually not too great, because even once again, even the knowledge of what is going to happen can change it.
Oh, okay. So when we're using tarot cards, we're kind of getting a rough outline in a possible future rather than an exact future.
Yeah, and what I find with tarot, in the divinatory sense, that's maybe more spectacular than its ability to predict the future, is its ability to look into what's going on presently. And so, I'll meet with somebody who's never met me before. I've never, met them, never even heard their name before they're on the phone or in person with me. I'll throw down some cards and go, oh, this is interesting. Here's what you're going through right now. Here's what you just barely went through. And here's what it's leading to. Now, here's the things that you're wanting to do. And here's the best way to go about that. And then they're blown away because I just barely unveiled their entire life to them through tarot. That is actually really, really spectacular. But another aspect of the tarot is that basically the tarot is it's a system of symbols representing the whole of existence. The macrocosm has been broken down into these cards that are symbolic. Now, so what that means is you can take any one of those cards or any number of those cards, lay them in front of you, and it tells you something about your reality, and then you can use these as sigillic gateways or as symbols that you can use magically. So, let's say that a person wants to increase their fertility, they want to have a baby, and they haven't been able to. Well, you can use the Empress card and focus on that, meditate on that, invoke that energy of the Empress, and increase the likelihood of being able to get pregnant.
Okay, awesome. So this would be actually a form of sigil magic.
Yeah, it is a type of sigil magic if you use it as such, for sure.
One of the really good interviews / videos that I thought that you did, I forget who you were talking to, but you and him were talking about the Norse sort of magic, like Odin and all of that. God, that was fascinating.
No, yeah, it is. Well, right now I'm spending this year. I mean, on top of all the different things, books that we're publishing, all of this, I'm filming a Viking magic pathworking course, and so I'm actually walking people through how to work with these ancient Viking gods. And in the Viking mythology, there are 9 worlds, and each world is inhabited by different entities. And so through this video course, I'm actually teaching you how to travel to each of these worlds, how to work with the entities within those worlds, how to use their magic in the same way that the ancient Norse would do. And so it is massively powerful. And that's my ancestry is Scandinavian, almost completely, if not completely. And so it resonates with me pretty strongly. But it's also interesting because the Norse system is pre-Christian and immediately pre-Christian, and it existed for quite a while. And so you can follow it back even to the Stone Age, and that not that it wasn't unchanged, because it did change and evolve. But it's an ancient system that existed up until the Christians came in and violently put an end to it. We are seeing a massive revival of these ancient systems, for sure. I think more and more people are starting to turn to the as Terence McKenna says, to the last sane moment that we knew, and that's when we were living in a much more harmonious manner with our world and our environment.
I really feel that the concept of there being worlds like in the Norse mythology. I find that to be particularly fascinating because one of the big things going on in the conspiracy world right now, you might think it's completely stupid, like I did at one point, but this whole flat Earth thing, like this idea that we've never been into space, it's all conspiracy, all that NASA stuff is fake, the world is actually flat. And that got me thinking, maybe maybe reality is just like the Norse mythology, where there actually are different worlds that you can travel into.
Yeah, well, the flat Earth theory, it doesn't. I don't think it's necessarily silly, but I think it's the reality. Where right now we can look around this reality, and although there is once again a reality to it, that if you fall off a cliff you will fall, that at the same time the cliff itself is more space than it is matter. That the space between electrons and the space between molecules is pretty intense compared to the actual matter of the molecule, and so a good deal of it is perception. And so whether the Earth is flat or round is really it's almost an irrelevant argument because the Earth is really a perceptive thing, that it's neither flat nor round. It's a whole lot of empty space that we are, through our perception, organizing into something that makes sense for us. I do at this point. I have a harder and harder time with the theory that we've never gone in, that we've never left the atmosphere, mainly because of a fellow named Elon Musk that is in no way associated with the government. I mean, aside from using NASA launch bases, he's putting his own shuttles and his own equipment into space, into at least into satellite range, into orbit, and he's doing some amazing things with it. And so it does get to be more and more difficult to believe that we haven't gone into space when private entrepreneurs are doing so.
Yeah, that makes quite a bit of sense. I did want to backtrack a little bit back to the time when you were first starting to get into this stuff, when you first ever tried to summon anything. What was it like? Were you really scared? And at what point did you realize it was working?
Oh, some of the first rituals that I did were out of this grimoire called the Necronomicon. And I got together with some of my friends, and we went out into the desert and performed this ritual. And it was a summoning forth of Azathoth. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying. As we called Azathoth, we had a little bowl that we had used as our incense censer. So we had that full of coals, and we put some incense on it. Did the invocation of Azathoth. Azathoth is the blind, mad god, and for some reason we thought he would be a good one to start with. And just as we could start to feel the air thickening, and you could feel that presence there, the bowl that we were using shattered, and not just fell apart, but actually exploded, and so that was kind of a signal to us, oh, this has gone into an interesting direction. And then out of nowhere, we got hit with some massive wind, and that I've noticed that the wind is a really interesting sign of the opening between the worlds. That just like when you open your front door, a breeze comes through. The exact same thing happens when you open a door between the astral plane and the physical plane. That a breeze comes through, an astral wind, and so we start noticing not just a little breeze, but an intense wind, and then it starts to rain out of nowhere, and not just a sprinkle, but a downpour. And we go running into my friend's house, and the windows are shaking, and thunder is all over the place. Now, these could very well be just natural phenomena. Maybe the forecast was to have a really crazy out of the normal storm come through. That's not what I thought. But regardless, all four of us that were there kind of understood that this was a reaction from having called this spirit, and we all did feel a sense of terror. And so we did some exorcisms from that book in order to kind of make it stop and hold it at bay, and then kind of rethought how we would go about working with these spirits. in order to not have a terrifying experience, started working with the Watcher, which is the Watchers are a specific race of beings in this Necronomicon, and in calling upon them had some really interesting experiences where we would do this at night, and we would see a figure that is blacker than the night appear, just kind of form in the darkness before us, and had some really interesting experiences with that. Physical touch, as far as one of my friends reached outside of the circle and invited this Watcher to shake his hand, and his hand got grabbed, and we could see the impression, of his hand collapsing as another hand that we couldn't see grabbed his, and then he was pulled out of the circle, and it took the other three of us to pull him back in the circle, grabbing onto him and yanking him back, and there was a very real force that was pulling him out. And so, have had, right off the bat, had some really, really crazy experiences that validated that this is not just a fantasy role-playing, but that there is something very real that happens when you summon forth these entities.
Now, this circle of protection, of course, I've heard this term on, and this is one of the forms of magic I practice myself, just because of the stuff that I'm into. It seems like a smart thing to do. But why are these protection circles super important in magic summoning rituals, and what exactly do they do?
Well, it's interesting because the circle, the calling it a circle of protection is a pretty recent thing. That's only been going on for the past few hundred years. Previous to that, in specific, Gardnerian systems and Alexandrian witchcraft, for instance, the circle doesn't keep the spirit out. It actually keeps the spirit in. That when you invoke the spirit, it comes into the circle and comes into you, and it doesn't leave the circle. And in other systems, the circle acts as a protection, and in some others, it acts as a welcoming kind of point for the spirits to come. Now, in the sense of the symbolism of it, the circle is representative of the eternal, of the all. It is the connected ring of all things. And so when you're standing in the center of the circle, you have centered yourself in the universe. You are the center of your own reality in that moment. And then you perform these rituals or these meditations or visualizations to bring yourself into a state where you recognize your own godhood, that you in that moment are no longer just a person, but you are the embodiment of the divine. And then you call upon the spirits, and they obey you, and they work with you. Now, spirits can reach right into the circle and pull you out if they want to. They can reach through and touch you. I've had several spirits actually step over the boundaries of the circle and physically touch me. And so the circle doesn't. It is not necessarily a protective barrier. That it doesn't necessarily work like that. You can do things like, if you do a circle of salt, for instance, then that becomes a protective barrier because of the absorbent essence of salt. The salt has always been used, in pretty much as far back as we can see in history. Salt has been used to absorb the essence of anything spiritual, and so a circle of salt can be used as a protection. But just drawing a circle on the ground doesn't necessarily protect you, but it does center you. It basically gives you a space that you're calling yours, that centers you in your own universe.
Okay, so really the right way to do it seems, is to, when you summon an entity, to have the circle there to contain it. I can only imagine many people who get into this, they don't do it that way. They either stand in the circle or they don't do anything like that at all. Could this be a dangerous thing that people that don't have enough knowledge about this are doing, where they're summoning spirits and not containing them properly?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that this is all very real, and so when you call on a spirit, there is danger there. And so, here's the biggest piece of advice I give people is do some research and really make sure that this is a force that you want to have in your life. and that's, I mean, that's big, because I think that's probably the biggest thing is people will kind of willy-nilly call on these spirits, and you really have to look into it. And who are they? What other names have they gone by? What are their attributes? And is this, if that spirit was a person, would you invite them into your home and have dinner with them? If not, don't summon them. Because, once again, this is a real force that you're inviting into your life, and not just a force, but an intelligent entity, and it does have its own desires, its own will, it has its own intelligence, and if it's not something that you would welcome into your home, then don't welcome it into your home. And so that is, I think that's probably more important than maybe looking at looking at the specific, how you're drawing the circle, or whether you're using a triangle, or these sorts of things. But in Aleister Crowley's work, he talked about doing animal sacrifice, and to do animal sacrifice within a circle will trap the energy of the spirit. And so you take the animal sacrifice, you kneel down in the inside of the circle with it, you slit its throat, and at the moment that its energy is released, that is trapped inside that circle and then is absorbed into your body, and you're able to make use of that energy. And so there is something with that circle that it does act as a once again, not a protective barrier, but definitely it does create almost a field that everything within that circle is especially magically charged.
Have you ever had any tense situations where an entity was coming close to maybe taking control of you, or just wouldn't go away?
Well, I've purposefully engaged in possession, specifically as I was working through Haitian Vodun and Voodoo, that I would invite these spirits in. Not just invite them; it's getting possessed is actually hard work, because you have to let go of all of yourself and invite these things in a pretty heavy way. And so I've done that pretty consciously and intentionally, and it's always a really shocking experience to do that, for sure. I have had spirits that haven't wanted to go away, and this is kind of maybe why it's important to have to do quite a bit of research maybe before you start diving in. This is why I've got a Mastering Evocation video course that I teach people how to summon spirits. And that video course is like 12 hours long. And it needs to be 12 hours long because there's a lot of information that you're going to need in order to do this properly. And so, if somebody just reads through a grimoire and says, okay, I'm going to do this ritual real quick, well, you're probably missing some of the key points of what you need to do to actually make it work, and what you need to do to make it safe. And so when I've had spirits that don't really want to go along with what I want them to do, then getting rid of them, exorcising them or that sort of thing, doing banishings and everything. That's I know how to do that. I've practiced that, and it's then it's just a matter of going through the methods to make them either cooperate or to leave. And these are all, there's a lot to this. And so I think if somebody just picks up a book and starts summoning things without having kind of the foundational knowledge, they're gonna run into some problems.
Have you seen this new Marvel comic book movie, Doctor Strange?
Oh yeah.
What did you think of that? Did you like it? I loved it.
Oh, I loved it, and it's it's interesting what movies do. The media, they trickle these really, really interesting spiritual and occult concepts into a really entertaining format. First of all, super entertaining movie, really, really good. I don't go to the theater very often. That was I think that was the last movie I went to the theater to see, and I don't go to the theater very often because most of the time movies don't interest me that much. This one kept my attention the whole time. It was an excellent, excellent movie. But then the I think magical significance of the things that are going on. the opening up portals to different places, the specific motions that were used, the training that he goes through in order to be able to do that. It's very, very close to reality. You know, when I watch some movies, or what's even more interesting is when I watch some of the stuff that my daughter watches, some cartoons that are on, some of the shows that are out there for kids. I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, these are occult secrets. This is stuff that, that 20 years ago nobody knew about, and now it's out there on the television, and my daughter's watching it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I was watching it. I was thinking, hey, this stuff is actually real. What are they doing? Are people going to watch this and know how real this stuff actually is?
Well, and you know, I don't think it's accidental. I do think that there is a once again, we are in the Luciferian age, the age of revealing, and I think that there are seeds being planted in people's minds, and whether or not they're going to take it and actually perform rituals or try any of these things is really not the point. They're being the seeds are being planted. This is possible. That the things that you're seeing here are real, and it's really amazing what you're able to do with entertainment, for instance, and specifically with with filmmaking, is you're able to take something that is a pretty abstract concept and show it to people. And once you can do that, then it's kind of ingrained in the mass consciousness that this is possible. You know, the fact that airplanes fly is absurd. You know, my girlfriend is an engineer, and she went through college, became an engineer. She now makes a living doing that, and the science cannot explain why planes fly. The science behind it, they had to invent symbols that didn't exist, that don't mean anything on their own, in order to calculate how to make planes fly. But and the schematics have been there for quite a while. Da Vinci was doing schematics of helicopters. Couldn't get one to fly until mass consciousness believed that it was possible. And as soon as a good percentage, or even just a percentage of the human population believes that something is possible, then it opens up a whole new doorway. So right now we've got planes that can fly, these heavy metal objects that are soaring across the sky, and you can sip your wine as you're going ridiculous speeds across the world. Pretty soon it's going to be a matter of the human consciousness realizing that you don't have to travel in a straight line to get from point A to point B, and our way of travel is going to be completely revolutionized.
Okay, and this next question, it might be slightly controversial, but would you say that there's any sort of place in the world of magic for pot, cannabis, or psychedelic drugs?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So there is. Well, so first off, I would say if anything grows out of the earth, I don't want to call it a drug. If something's made in a laboratory, then it's a drug, and it's something that I, at this point in my life, will avoid. Anything that grows up out of the earth is basically a plant or a vegetable, and can have some really positive effects. As far as cannabis, some people have seen that it helps them relax, that it helps them kind of get into just a more relaxed state. That one of the biggest things, the issues that people have with like meditation or even ritual, is just getting relaxed enough to let it happen and get into the state of it. I think what's more interesting to me is the use of entheogens or psychedelics, and I wouldn't use these magically, in that I wouldn't use them to do a ritual in order to have an end result in the world, but I'd use them mystically, being that I would take them in order to learn something about myself, or to peer into these other worlds, and it can absolutely be beneficial, done in the right circumstances. And often with the right people, with the right intention. It's set and setting for sure. But these are absolutely beneficial and have been used by shaman for as long as shaman have existed. I had a guy that I had out here for my in-person training boot camp, and he made a really interesting point that I hadn't considered, that never never in any culture has shamanism not included psychedelics in some way, and it always has. And the two kind of the two key posts or markings of shamanism are music and psychedelics, and you combine the two, and you can have some extraordinarily revealing experiences.
Okay, awesome. And do we have time for one more quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I was saving this one for last because it's one of my favorite topics. But EA, do you believe in telepathy at all?
Yeah. I think a lot of people probably experience telepathy with people that they know closely, that they, finishing somebody else's sentence, or my girlfriend will think something, and I'll reach over and grab her what she was thinking of asking me to grab her. It's where it gets difficult is controlling telepathy, where if you sit there and you think something and you try to push it into somebody's mind, or you sit there and try to see what somebody else is thinking, it gets really, really difficult. Mainly because you're trying. One of the things that I say is that if you're trying too hard. And so you need to absolutely just let go. One of the things, if somebody wants to practice like a little telepathic experiment, go sit in a public place. I used to do this in just like the local mall. Just go sit there, relax, get a soda or a coffee, and sit and relax on a bench and watch people. And as somebody passes you, just try to imagine what they're feeling, not thinking. Picking up on thoughts is kind of difficult, but imagine what they're feeling and try to feel it. And just let it pass, and then turn to somebody else and just do that for a little bit. Just focus on what, and it starts out as an imagination thing that you go, I'm just imagining, I'm playing make believe. Pretty quickly, you start really feeling what everybody around you is feeling, and then that can pretty quickly turn not to hearing their thoughts, but to understanding what's going on with their thought process. And at that point, it kind of starts to take on a life of its own. Now, the danger in that is it gets really, really hard to shut off. That you find yourself kind of having this ongoing clatter of what other people are feeling and thinking around you all the time, and it does get kind of hard to make it stop.
Do you mean make it stop entirely, or make the process inside of you stop?
Yeah, to make the process inside of you stop, to turn it off. This is the thing with any of these occult faculties. Once you turn them on, it's much more difficult to get them to turn off. For instance, once you start seeing the spirits of the dead around you, you start paying attention to them, it's really, really hard to stop seeing them. You can do it. You just have to focus your attention away from it. And same thing with telepathy or empathic experiences. That you have to focus your attention away from it in order to make it to not hear or feel or experience what other people are experiencing. It's like I said, that once you turn these things on, it's much easier to turn them on than it is to turn them off.
Okay, awesome. There's so much more I could ask on that topic, but we're running out of time here. So I wanted to just go ahead and open up the floor, and if you have any last things that you want to say, if you want to get on the soapbox one more time, feel free to do that. Or if you just want to go ahead and plug whatever you'd like to plug, go ahead and use this opportunity now.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, we are in a completely new age, a new era. And this is, like I said, this is the era of Lucifer, revelation, of enlightenment and freedom. And so with that, I would urge everyone to check out Awakening Lucifer and the Rites of Lucifer. Go to becomealivinggod.com/Lucifer. You can find the books there. We have a limited amount. They're going to sell fast. Go check that out. This is going to really show you one of the most powerful beings that has existed with the human race since the beginning, and it'll introduce you to who that is. Whether or not you ever want to work with Lucifer, you still need to pick this book up, at least so you understand who he actually is. It is probably the best education on that being that you're going to get. That's coming out this next Monday, and so you check that out, becomealivinggod.com/Lucifer.
Okay, awesome. It was a pleasure as usual. The reason why it's so fun having you on the show is because you're just so darn knowledgeable about this stuff. You seem to have an endless amount of knowledge, and I'd absolutely love to do this again at some point.
Oh, absolutely. I am always happy to. It's always fun coming on with you, and so just shoot me an email whenever you want me back on, and I'll say yes.
Okay, we'll do, my friend. You have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
And there you have it. That was the famous or infamous E.A. Koetting. I had a great time talking to him, as I knew that I would, because he is such a phenomenal guest. And this month we're kind of going with a little bit of a magic theme, so that definitely fit. I'm going to go ahead and jump into a break just so I can use the bathroom. Whoops, sorry about that. Damn YouTube. Just so I can go out and use the bathroom and do stuff like that. I'll come back in about 5-10 minutes and we'll continue the show from there. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to End of Days Radio. This is your host, Daniel, coming back at you. I really, really apologize for the beginning of the show. I don't even know what happened there. Actually, I do know. What happened was, like I explained earlier, I had to update Skype. It asked me if I wanted to try the new version. I should have said no. I clicked yes, and then chaos ensued because that is probably a beta version that I was using, and it made everything screw up. It actually felt like my computer was haunted for a second, which is probably appropriate considering the subject matter of the show today. However, it really put a wrench in my plans and made it a little bit difficult. But I remained calm and I powered through, and we ended up with a very outstanding interview. So clap, clap for me. Clap, clap. Yay. Pats on the back. Can you hear that, everybody? Can you hear me patting myself on the back? As you know, this is the news and roundtable, the news and roundtable segment of End of Days Radio. If you'd like to call in during this time, feel free. That number is 209-348-9810. Once again, that's 209-348-9810 or Ninja Shoe 777 on Skype. You can add me. I'm on right now, so I can add you rather quickly. That is our second show of the month, or that was our second interview of the month with E.A. Koetting. Like I was saying earlier when he was still on the line, the guy has so much knowledge about the occult world, and it just goes on and on and on. He's somebody that has really devoted his life to this. And the thing is, with any sort of knowledge or any skill, it's not enough to just devote your life to it. You have to love it as well. And I can tell that he has both of those qualities. He's devoted himself to it, and he also loves it. And that's why he knows so much. That's why he's able to talk about things that other people either don't even know exist or just don't want to go anywhere near. The thing is with this, we'll get to the news and stuff in a second, but the thing is with this occult subject matter, a lot of people don't want to go through it because they're afraid, or they don't want to go near it because they're afraid, because the church or whoever has created an aura of evil around it, where you won't read any occult or magic books because you liken it to Satanism, even though Satanism might be a part of the occult world, but doesn't really have anything to do with tarot cards or doesn't have anything to do with scrying. They're completely different things and unrelated to each other. But the mistake we make is we lump it all together and we make value judgments when it's not appropriate. There's absolutely nothing morally wrong with looking into this stuff. Absolutely nothing at all. You just have to get past those trepidations. I went through it myself. I wouldn't go near any of this stuff. I thought it was fake. I thought it was goofy role-playing stuff. I thought it was evil. If it was real, it was evil, and everything was evil, and it was demons. And yeah, demons are a part of this whole thing, but they don't encompass the entirety of the occult world. They're just a very small part of it. I mean, a lot of what we're dealing with is symbiology. It's mathematics. It's basic scientific type stuff. There's no reason to make strange judgments like that. And likewise, if somebody is a Christian person, if they believe in God or Jesus, there's nothing wrong with that either. A lot of you got really angry about the last guest because he was talking quite a bit about the Bible. He was talking about Christianity and stuff like that. And my reply to that is, come on, who cares? So what? It's information that's coming at you from another angle. What difference does it make what this person's specific beliefs are? Are you going to throw away all of their knowledge and information they can provide because they're coming from a Christian or a Catholic or a Jewish background or whatever? Are you really going to... that's akin to... it's being very judgmental, and it's the same thing as being racist or xenophobic, because you're judging a person based on their religion or their belief. Why do that? Why not just hear everybody out? I mean, if somebody's trying to preach to you or convert you and you don't want to listen to them or you don't want to go anywhere near them, that's your choice. But I don't see any reason to put them beneath anybody else that believes in anything else. Atheism, that's a belief system. Materialism, that's a belief system. Luciferianism, that's a belief system. Satanism, Mormonism, Scientology, they're all just different belief systems. Why judge? Why lump people... oh, my stomach's grumbling. Why lump them all into the same category? That's not right, is what I'm saying. Even though this is a show that tends to focus on occult stuff, UFOs and aliens and stuff like that, I'm not going to not have somebody on here because they're a Christian or because they're talking about the Bible or anything like that. I mean, I'm not exactly looking to put on a Sunday morning ministry or anything like that, but you get what I mean. I want to listen to all comers, no matter what their background is. I don't want to be biased towards anybody that might come on the show and have relevant information to share. So if you get annoyed because there's somebody that's coming on that's really into the Bible or is really Christian, I just ask that you reserve your judgments and just hear what they have to say. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, is what I like to say. I mean, I'm in the same boat as a lot of you guys. I was raised under the whole Christianity thing, and I had to kind of open my mind and get away from that and all of that. I've gone through the exact same thing, but even now, I do acknowledge that there's a lot of good wisdom in the Bible. There's a lot there to look at. There's a lot to research. There's a lot to study. There's a lot of good spirituality there. There's a lot of bad there, too. There's a lot of bad. Maybe there might even be more bad than good. But I really think that we got to keep an open mind and realize that just because somebody's a Mormon or they're, what's another one? They're a Jehovah's Witness or something, we shouldn't judge them or try to make them feel bad or not listen to what they say just because we consider that whole thing ridiculous. Sometimes people get caught up in stuff too. Like that whole Scientology thing. I mean, obviously that's a bunch of horseshit, right? But people get very deeply into it. They get attached to it, and they can't escape. And they're probably experiencing a really hellish life being part of an organization like that, but I don't see any reason to make it worse and tell them that they're stupid or they're a sheep or anything like that. We should be trying to help them get away from an organization like that instead of trying to make people feel bad. I'm not somebody that's into bullying or name calling or busting people's balls. I don't really do that. I don't joke around and make fun of people and put them down. I know a lot of people are really big on that sort of interaction. I'll do it a little bit here and there when it feels like it's safe and okay. But I'm not really into breaking people down. I like to build people up. Let's see here. Quit saying so much. Okay, so I do have a couple news stories here. The first one, this comes from craveonline.com. It's a news story from yesterday. Apparently, a bunch of kids, a Little League baseball team, they decided to name their team the Illuminati. I, I thought that was kind of interesting that the term Illuminati is so much a part of the collective unconscious, or it's so much part of our verbiage nowadays that little kids know it. I think that's really funny that little kids would even know what Illuminati is. I can just imagine they're running around the playground and pretending that they're part of the Illuminati. I wonder if they even acknowledge or believe that something like that could be real. But if some kids want to name their baseball team the Illuminati, I don't really have any problem with that. I think it's funny. It's a good name. It's a good name. If it's something that they came up with, it's something they can take pride in, and it makes them feel like their team is special and they're a part of something special, then I'm all for it. And if they are raising awareness of an actual Illuminati somewhere, all the better. Like we talked about earlier with EA, the Illuminati isn't really something that is... It's not like there's a group of people standing in some room somewhere that call themselves the Illuminati. It doesn't work that way. When we say Illuminati, we mean the entire system. We mean pretty much all of the secret societies and all of the organizations, all of the intelligence agencies, all of the religions that factor into this worldwide spiderweb or octopus or pyramid of control, of this negative sort of this negative control. It even has a vampiristic sort of side of it. And if you are wondering how that works, we'll just rewind and listen to the interview earlier when EA was talking about vampirism and the occult. That's how it works. He was giving us the fundamentals and the science behind it, but we really are in a system that's based on those principles. I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's not easy to teach these concepts or get them across. I hope that makes sense. But if some kids want to call themselves the Illuminati, that's fine. I remember playing that video game Grand Theft Auto 5. You younger folks out there are going to know what I'm talking about, but there was kind of an ongoing joke within that game that there's some kind of Illuminati out there. I thought that was really interesting because that game is very, very mainstream. Pretty much anybody that is, under the age of 40 has probably played the Grand Theft Auto series at some point, unless you are somebody that just hates video games. There's a lot of people out there like that. They just hate video games. Okay, so I've got a letter here from a listener. Dear Daniel. Oh, I'm sorry. This comes from Meg, M-E-G, Meg. Dear Daniel, who is your favorite superhero? That's an excellent question. Thank you, Meg. Thank you for asking me an interesting question that is not sexual or is not a put down towards me. I do thank you for a normal, G-rated, interesting question. And that's a hard question to answer because I like a lot of superheroes. I'm a comic book guy. I read comic books growing up. I read comic books now when I have the time. But my all-time favorite, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with this, is the Silver Surfer. And I don't mean the Silver Surfer from recent times, like if you're into comic books and you read the newer Silver Surfer comic. I mean the Silver Surfer from back in the 90s. That Silver Surfer was a badass. I like the Silver Surfer because he can move at super fast speeds. He also is super powerful. Like, nobody can beat him in a fight. There's only a few guys that can beat him. He can do almost anything. He can take a cat and turn it into a glass of water. He can bring people back to life. He can destroy planets. He can travel through black holes unharmed. He can pass through things, become intangible and pass through things. He has a lot of the same powers as the Flash. And being that his story was located in space made it especially interesting to me. We have seen the Silver Surfer on film once in that Fantastic Four movie. What was it called? Something, the Silver Surfer. That movie was awful. As cool as it was seeing the Silver Surfer in live action, that movie was shit. I waited the whole movie to see Galactus. That was the big reveal, right? Seeing Galactus. Galactus was coming. One of the most famous Fantastic Four stories. I'm sorry, I'm probably boring the shit out of most of you, but one of the most famous Fantastic Four stories is the coming of Galactus. And it was my understanding that they were going to redo that on film. But then we watched the movie, and I'm sure for budgetary reasons, there's no Galactus. Do you guys know what's going on with Marvel Comics and Fox? Marvel sold them the rights to make certain movies, and they have to make a new movie after every so many years, like every 7 years, where they lose the license and it goes back to Marvel. Well, Disney bought Marvel, and I'm sure Disney would like those licenses back so they can make those movies. But Fox still owns the X-Men and Spider-Man and a few other ones, and they keep coming out these movies every so many years so they can hang on to the license, so they can hang on to that property, and they can keep making movies about them. You know, these are very valuable intellectual properties. Marvel probably didn't care that much until they were bought out by Disney, and Disney sure as heck cares that they don't have the rights to the X-Men movies, let me tell you. Moving along. Okay, so there's a new It movie. You guys remember the It movie by Stephen King? Kind of relevant to the show because we talk about demonic entities and things like that. Stephen King, I really like. I find him to be, in some ways, similar to a guy like H.P. Lovecraft. In some ways, I'm sure he's very inspired by him. But typically, Stephen King stories are pretty good, right? There's Cujo, there's, what's her name, Carrie, the girl that goes crazy and kills everybody in her high school. Who hasn't wanted to do that, right? There's It, of course. The Stand. That is a good one. The Stand. That's all about like end times and revelations and stuff like that. So if you haven't read that one yet or watched the movie, absolutely. But anyways, they're making a new It movie. It's a remake. And I have a problem with this because the original It movie, I think it was a TV movie. It was like a mini-series type of thing. It might have been 2 parts. And it had John Boy in it, and it had the girl from Little House on the Prairie in it. And it was really good. The clown, Pennywise the Clown. Oh man, that movie is so good. It was perfect. It's a lot of people's favorite scary movie, or one of them. But they take something that's already been done perfect, and they try to remake it so they can make money off of it. They want to make money. Are they making it any better? I went and I watched the preview, and it sucked. It wasn't scary like the old one. It was stupid. It was just so, like, in your face. Ooh, this is supposed to be scary. Oh my god, it's a clown with sharp teeth. It wasn't scary at all. Whatever campy sort of 80s, early 90s feel that original had, they did not transfer it into this new movie. They're not creating the same atmosphere. And I hate that. I hate all these reboots. I hate it. The Ninja Turtles movie, god-awful. The newest one. I don't mean the one that's from like 7-10 years ago. I mean the last 2. The Michael Bay. Michael Bay movies are garbage. Every single one of them is garbage. He should not even be making movies. If somebody took out Michael Bay, like if the Illuminati took out Michael Bay, that would be perfect. But they'll never do that because they want him to keep making shitty movies. Like with Transformers, they put all that weird military shit in the movies. You remember that, right? Like half of Transformers 2 was about the military and planes flying around the desert and stuff like that. Garbage. Hot garbage. Quit making remakes. Quit shitting all over my childhood. Stop it! Damn it. Enough. The G.I. Joe movie wasn't that bad. Mainly because they never made a G.I. Joe movie in the past. That's probably the main one. But Transformers, garbage. Even the Transformers in the movie looked like garbage. They looked like garbage glued together. Why? Why make shitty movies like that? Just make them... if you want to make a new Transformers movie, just make it exactly like the old cartoon. Make them look the same way. Devastator should not look like a bunch of garbage stuck together. Devastator should look like a big, giant green robot. Devastator was a badass. And so was... what's his name? He was one of the Decepticons. Not Starscream. Soundwave. Oh my god, Soundwave was so cool. Soundwave should have his own movie series. Okay, enough of this nerdiness, Daniel. Have you guys seen the show Legion? I know I said enough of this nerdiness, but seriously, have you seen Legion? I highly recommend that show. So Legion is kind of an X-Men character. He's from Marvel Comics. And if you are into the topic of paranormal abilities or psychic powers and stuff like that, I highly recommend you watch the show. I highly recommend it. You'll absolutely love it. I can't talk that much about it because I'll probably spoil it for you, but just like we talked about Doctor Strange earlier, I feel like a lot of stuff in this show is actually reflecting reality in a way. It's almost like so many things that we think are myths or fantasy that we enjoy are actually real, which is pretty funny because we've been completely convinced that these things are not real. Like Santa Claus. Isn't the Santa Claus thing weird? Because it's like we're born, right? And then one of the first things that ever happens to us is we're told this massive lie, which is a massive lie, which is absolutely guaranteed to break your heart at some point in the future. So why do parents put their kids through this? Why is there a tradition of teaching kids about Santa Claus only so that we can destroy that belief in the future? Could there be some kind of agenda here? Could Santa really just be an anagram of Satan? Is this all one of Satan's tricks to collect the tears of young children? Could there be a greater psychological purpose to this in the creation of our reality, the manipulation of our reality? Could there be some reason why we're all taught about Santa Claus only so we can have that wonderful, beautiful belief stripped away from us? Is there a reason for it? What else is going on? I did have a very weird experience the other day. I'm not sure if I should talk about it, but it wasn't long after I finished the last show that I did yesterday with Richard Bruce. I was in my house, and I was actually picking out on a bag of chips. I was stoned and I was hungry, and I was eating chips. So I rolled up the bag and I put a clip on it and I put it down, and then I walked away from that spot. And then this really weird thing happened. The countertop on the opposite side of where the chips were, so I put the chips in this little basket, and on the opposite side on the counter, it's like the whole wall sort of creaked, almost like something banged against it, like it creaked, like it was twisting. It went like that. And then I heard a huge footstep or a huge thump sound against the floor in between the wall and where the bag of chips were. And then the bag of chips started like moving. It started like kind of unfolding, sort of sliding downwards. It's very hard to explain. And it's like it all happened all at once, like this wave of energy like passed through that little area. And when that happened, my cat jumped up and started staring at that spot. And I always take notice of stuff like that because, they say animals can see paranormal things better than we can. So I was wondering if there was actually something there. I mean, my cat wouldn't be staring at that spot if it was just some walls clicking around because they're getting hot and cooling and expanding and contracting. It really felt like something was there. It was creepy. Especially considering the show that I just did a few hours earlier about large invisible beings that can manipulate density and appear and disappear. So, I mean, I'm not saying that there's a reptilian after me or anything like that. It might have just been on my mind, and wood does expand and contract, and sometimes chip bags move on their own, who knows, but it was eerie. It definitely felt paranormal. Let's see, what else do we have here? I do have another letter from a reader. I've been saving this one. It's kind of a heavy subject. I've been saving this one. I don't want to get too heavy on y'all all at once, if you know what I'm saying. But This comes from Harold. Harold says, Dear Daniel, you claim to be this awakened person, but you are not vegan, comma. What gives, comma. Are you blind to the suffering of millions of innocent animals? Ooh, Harold. You kind of got me there. I gotta admit. I am not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not anything like that. I eat meat like every day. Even when I eat healthy, I still eat meat. I eat tons of chicken. I eat tons of eggs. I don't disagree that it is a better moral and ethical choice. I think that that is something that is universally accepted as true. Pain and suffering of living creatures is wrong. But we also were raised and grew up in this 3D environment, this physical world where animals eat each other. Are you going to go up to a wolf or a lion and tell him not to eat meat, that he has to eat kibble that's made out of crushed up broccoli or something like that? The animal will die if you do that. And you always hear all this, what is it, propaganda, who knows, where they say, oh no, you don't need meat, you can eat broccoli, you can eat this, you can eat that. You don't have to eat meat. Yeah, maybe you don't have to eat meat. Maybe you can stand eating those little kibbles and that vegan food, and maybe you can stand eating the same thing almost every day and having to scour the internet for new recipes to fix up your cauliflower and your whatever else those guys eat. But I mean, come on, you take away milk, you take away cheese, you take away chicken, you take away beef, you take away any sort of animal byproducts, and what do you have left? I mean, French fries and tomatoes. It probably would be good to eat that way, but you're really going to tell me I can't eat fish out of the water? I can't eat chicken? Chicken is very lean and it's high in protein. The same with fish, and it's delicious. Barbecued food, oh my god, I just can't give that stuff up. I was raised as a meat eater, and I'm going to continue to be a meat eater, and it's not that I don't think that it's far more just and ethical to be a vegan and avoid animals having to suffer like that. I suppose if things were as they should be, we would have to go out and we'd have to hunt like animals do, and we'd have to kill the animal quickly, and it would have a chance to survive. That would be much more fair, rather than these farms where the animals suffer and they're raised just to die, and they have to have babies, and their babies are going to be eaten. It's hell. We're putting them through hell. I don't deny that. I don't deny that there's some kind of occult significance to this. It's part of that vampirism I was talking about earlier, and we were talking about earlier with EA. It's all part of it, but am I individually going to make that change in the here and now? No, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep barbecuing. I'm going to keep cooking delicious teriyaki chicken. I'm going to keep eating toasted cheese sandwiches. I haven't had one of those in a while. I'm going to keep eating eggs for breakfast, because you know what? It is so easy to break apart 3 eggs, mix them up with a little milk, and dump them in a pan and have like this super vitamin protein rich meal that only adds up to like what? 300 to 400 calories. That's extremely efficient. You're not going to take that away from me. You're not going to take my eggs away from me because you're on some kick about not hurting animals. What sort of other things are you doing that could be improved upon? I mean, really, people are so hypocritical. Especially these freaking millennium socialist kids that are running around, or they call themselves socialists. They don't even know what it means. They just do whatever the liberal media tells them to, or the media. I guess I shouldn't say liberal media. That's very biased, but you know what I mean. They just believe whatever they say on the news. They don't give it any sort of critical thought. They've got a little bit too much cognitive dissonance going on. Cognitive dissonance, that's one of the major problems. But no, you're not pushing your veganism on me. Or feminism. I mean, feminism can be pretty annoying too. I mean, no offense to anybody out there. I'm all for women being equal and women's rights and stuff like that. But if you're some feminist and you're only a feminist because you're a plain Jane and you have a college degree and nobody wants to date you and you hate men, then you're not really a feminist. You're just an angry person that's angry at men. And likewise, if you're a guy that, it hates feminists or hates women, that's not right either. Of course that's wrong. But feminism can be very annoying. You know what I'm saying? Like, women already have the right to vote and already have all their rights. They already make as much money as guys. So why does there need to be all of this militant sort of feminism going on? I just don't understand it. I think a lot of it is just like I said. It's women who aren't very attractive and they get a college degree and they learn about this stuff and they get all into it. And then because nobody wants to date them, they start to dislike men a little bit. And then they spend the rest of their lives talking about annoying feminism. Oh man, I'm going to get some heat for this. I better say something to smooth it out. But I think I'm running out of time. You know what I mean, though. I'm just being honest. Some things bug me. I'm sure that there are an equal amount of men out there that are doing annoying things, like some of these very, very, very militant Trump supporters that, they spend all day on Twitter talking about how bad Muslims are or this or that. It's just ridiculous. It's like, come on, people, give me a break from your rhetoric for just one day. I know I got into that Trump thing during the election, but hey, at least it was during the election. You don't see me talking politics and rhetoric every day now, do you? No, I've moved on. I'm doing other stuff. I'm playing video games. I'm doing this show. I'm taking care of my petunias. I don't have any petunias. But you know what I mean. I've moved on. I'm not sitting there talking about make America great again a freaking half a year after the election. Come on. What we should be doing is we should be doing something about this damn homeless problem. That's what we should be doing, but nobody really cares, or at least they don't care enough. You just hear all this rhetoric. Gay marriage. Make America great again. Feminism. Shut the fuck up, please. Let's talk about anything else. Let's talk about chemtrails. You guys seen any chemtrails lately? Oh. You know what? We've got another show just right around the corner. There's another show Saturday. So I'm probably going to go ahead and call it good. Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's June 8th. I'll be joined by Thomas Hatsis. And then the next show will be June 10th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That'll be with Andrea Vitimus. Then we got Billy Brujo, June 16th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. David Plate's coming on June 17th, 8 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time. That's a new one that was just added. So be sure to make that show if you can. And Eve Lorgan's coming on June 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you enjoy End of Days Radio, remember to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. Follow me on Twitter at Ninja Shoes. Subscribe on YouTube. Connect with me on Skype. That's NinjaShoes777. On Facebook, facebook.com/The Real End of Days Radio. On the TuneIn Radio app, it's just EODR. It doesn't say End of Days Radio, just EODR. Make sure you subscribe to the right one, not any phonies or fakes. Also, if you are a fan of MMA or pro wrestling, you can join ninjashoes.net. That is a online community about those sort of things that I don't talk about on this show because it would bore the crap out of you guys. You want to talk about wrestling? Talk about what's up with Brock Lesnar? Don't worry, I'm not going to go into that stuff. Although I will say that Shinsuke Nakamura is the man, and so is AJ Styles. So is Sasha Banks. She's not the man, she's the woman. She's like the best female wrestler. Okay, enough of that. If you want to donate, you can. just go to endofdaysradio.com and click that PayPal donate button. I do appreciate your donations, even if it's just $5. It definitely helps with the server cost and things like that. It just helps me overall make ends meet, and so I can keep doing the show and keep putting on these awesome performances. And if you want to start your own podcast, I do highly recommend it. This is the podcasting revolution. These are the times that we are in, and I do absolutely recommend it. If there's anything that I can do to help you get started, feel free to ask me any questions that you might have. I'm making it excuse me. I'm making it a part of my whole thing to not only help information get out there through doing my show, but also help others start their own shows so they might help spread some of this information, some of this occult knowledge, some of this conspiracy stuff. So, if you ever thought about getting behind a mic, then I really recommend it. But it doesn't have to be about paranormal either. It can be about anything. The trick is to make it about something that you're passionate about. Otherwise, you'll get bored right away. So the more topics and the more interesting types of podcasts that we have out there, the better, and the quicker we move on from terrestrial radio and we truly enter into the podcasting age. And we don't have to come under the jurisdiction of the FCC or the advertisers or the corporations. Oh yes, there is a brighter future out there. All right, everybody, I'm done. I'm sure you've had enough of my mouth by now, so I'll let you go. Remember to come back here this Saturday so that we can do it all again. Here's that outro for you.
Winter's coming.
The king has returned from the broken ruins of Babylon. This is the end of days. Yes, it's me. I am back. I just realized something. The next show, it is not Saturday. It is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I have no idea why I said that. I don't know why I said that it was Saturday. Let's see. Do we have a show scheduled this Saturday? Yes, we do have a show Saturday as well. But the next show is not Saturday. It's tomorrow night. It's at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So stop by endofdaysradio.com. And remember that when you are sleeping, I am standing by your bed staring at you. I'm just kidding. You guys have a great day.